Starting with the first one, the ABC Fitness one. We discussed that one a lot in class, right? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we discussed, this was the data. We had product codes and a bunch of other metrics. We had age. So each line was a product purchased by a certain customer, right? We had some data on the customer and their usage of the equipment and their income and the distances, like the average run, right? And so it was kind of a bit open-ended. There were some fixed questions. Where did I put those? Okay, here. There were some questions to answer. We did some of these in class. So first, was anyone challenged in any of these areas, like on any of the questions? Were you stuck?
We'd like you to look into the histogram.
Okay. So plotting the histogram. Sure. What else? What other area? Okay. So we have everything else covered, right? Someone said question 5. Okay. Question 3. Okay, question 3, the histograms. Okay. So essentially, that means all the other ones are all these are straightforward. For the histograms, you remember we talked about histograms a lot throughout the class. So for the histograms, if it's how to insert them, I remember Shift and Control. So you're just inserting a histogram. So here you have your normal bar charts. Here you have other line graphs and charts. And here you have statistical charts. And you have histogram here, which inserts a histogram. So this is, let's say, client income. Right? So remember, for a histogram, we have like different bins that the data is put into. So in this case, this is from 29,562 to 37,662. So Excel is doing it automatically here.
Sorry, I have something to say.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So many of us are challenged with Instagram because Instagram is actually not showing on our system. For some reason, it's showing on other stuffs, but when it comes to these data sets, it's not coming up. And I'm wondering if that's a likely general problem or if there's a likely solution to fix that, because we can see every other chart options like the line charts, the pie charts, the bar charts, column, but no option for histogram.
Okay, so go to where you save the file in your computer. What kind of file is it? Is it .xls or XLSX? Can you check that?
This is currently .xls.
Right. So open the file, open the document like this, and just save as. Save a copy. And when you save a copy, select this extension. So there's the older, sometimes like if the file opens as an older Excel version, I think 07 to 2003, then you don't have that statistical charts automatically enabled unless but you can easily save it as a different extension and you should see the option. Can everyone try that and see if this fixes it for them?
Yes, it did.
It did? Okay. Right. So once it does, then you just have to highlight the data, insert histogram. And if you come to the bins here, you can modify the bin width. So what is showing as automatic, you can manually set the bin width, or you can select number of bins. So if I want this to be a bit more granular, right, I can make it let's say 15 bins, right? So you see, it increases the number of bins, which means reducing the bin width.
It doesn't fix it on mine.
It doesn't?
It doesn't fix it on mine.
So now that you've saved it as XLX, you still cannot see
histogram, yes.
That's strange. Is there anyone else that doesn't fix it for them?
Maybe I should close this completely and start again.
Okay, try that. So make sure when you're reopening it, the file extension is XLSX.
Yeah.
That doesn't work still. Come to options. Have you tried that? Let's try that first. For everyone else, have you drawn the histogram? Have you created the hist plot? Just thumbs up.
I found a way to modify my bar chart to get a histogram. And then apart from that, this bin thing you're doing, I had to do mine manually because it just didn't. Maybe I didn't know how to figure it out. I'll check again.
Right. But now are you able to do the histogram?
Oh, I just missed what you said there because I had distraction, but don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. And then
it's just 2 steps. It takes me 10 seconds. So you've highlighted the data, you go to insert, and you just insert the histogram. That's all, and you're here. Highlight the data, insert.
No, I do not have histogram, so I don't know what you asked us to do with XLX.
Oh, just go to File, save a copy. And then the copy you're saving, make sure the extension, you see there are different file extensions.
Okay.
Change it from this old Excel to XLSX.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure. So there's some issues with version with Excel generally, like on and off, but
persistent.
You can now say again?
Same persistent issue.
So it's an XLSX file, but it's not working.
Yes. So I do see combo, I do see waterfall, I do see hierarchy, statistical, XY, pi, line.
You see statistical, like, what does it look like?
Looks like
histogram is in statistical. Like.
Okay. Got you now. Yay.
Nice. Okay.
Thank you.
So to modify the number of bins, sometimes goes in reopening, save the copy, did not work at first. Okay. Someone says save and okay. So when you click the bins, just double click it, then you have these options. You can, if it's automatic, then Excel just chooses a certain bin width, or you can manually put the bin width, or you can put the number of bins you want, and it gets the whole data range and splits it into 20 bins, right? So now that we have this, what kind of distribution is this? All that is steps clicking. The main thing is to be able to interpret. So is this left skew or right skew? Come on, guys.
Right skew.
Right skew, great. So when this is on the left, then it's right skew. So we have many of our outliers, high income earners on the right. Someone said it didn't work for me, but I'll try after the class. Okay, sure. Just save as XLSX and relaunch it. If it still doesn't work, sometimes like the statistical package may not be enabled. So you can go to Home, Options, I think Add-ins. Then you're going to see a bunch of things. So try and put the analysis toolpath, just double click it. Go add analysis toolpath, then you'll be able to go to data analysis, and under data analysis, you have other options for creating histograms, right? So remember, if the other one is not working and you've saved it as SLXS, come to File, Options, go to your add-ins and go and add the analysis toolpack. Because in the analysis toolpack, when you come to data, so page layout, formulas, data, you're going to see an option on the extreme right for analysis. And in that data analysis tab, you have lots of different options, including histogram. So you can plot it this way as well, right? And if you miss that, you can get like our recordings and check as well. So that's another way.
Shekinah, that was exactly what I did, but I was having issues with the bin using that option. It didn't really allow me to set it.
What you had was like this on automatic, right? Is this what it looked like?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me? It didn't look like this when I picked the histogram. In fact, it didn't even allow me to set the bin. It just allowed me to set the range.
But you're able
so
to
when
see
I'm
bins
putting
like
it, because
this?
that I didn't see it. That's what I'm saying. I didn't see it like this. It separated, it gave me a bar chart, even though I picked histogram. And I guess it's because I couldn't set the bin. So Excel set it by default, but even at that, it didn't come out well.
Right. So you highlighted the data, came to insert, not bar chart, but came to histogram and clicked on histogram and you got this, right?
What I did was the data extension because my system, like I said, wasn't seeing this data analytics statistics. So I went through the add-in option and all of that and went to the data extension by the right and then
So
went to that histogram option. So I need to, yes. So if you click on it, it will bring out yes. So how do I put it bin range? I put what I should put. It was rejecting all my bin ranges.
Right.
Yes, that's what happened.
Okay. Maybe later, after the class or before, like earlier, I'll try to come early in the next class so we can look at it together. Maybe something with the Excel. Sometimes it adds up, yeah. Yeah, but usually like you'll be able to plot histograms here and they're just a good handy way, right, to quickly see the distribution of your data. So that's why I included in that assignment, just so everyone knows. You have some data you're working with, you found the mean, you're finding all these, measures of center on the data. Many times you want to quickly visualize like what the distribution looks like. It's always helpful to do that. And you can quickly do that with this, right? So I think in that question, it said, so for annual income, which we just did, let's just do one more, maybe age, and then go to, I think question 5. So for age, it's the same thing, really. I just highlight it, shift and insert histogram. So there you go, age distribution. And same way you can put the number of bins. So usually a number of bins will depend on like the range of the data. If you have too many bins for data that's small, like that low frequency data, then let me put a large number so you see what I'm saying. Like you have 13. You see, like the ranges don't really make so much sense. It's so tiny, 19.2 to 20 point something. So you want that distribution to make sense. So when you're choosing your bin number, you have to choose it bearing what the data looks like in mind, right? So I think we can see like how the data is distributed. Yeah, straightforward stuff we've been seeing. What was the other thing? So let's look at age and income. Let's see. So here we have on the y-axis, we have income and we have age. We remember what we looked at when we looked at correlation. You go back to the notes. Where was it again? So you remember what correlation is, just how the variables are moving together, right? Like how their variability is changing in what direction. So yeah, so you can see the correlation plot. So if you had two variables, one on the y-axis, one on the x-axis, positive correlation means like they're increasing together. So their variability increases this way. Negative correlation, the reverse. So an increase in one corresponds with a decrease in the other. And no correlation is, there's no discernible pattern in terms of how the two variables move. And in this case, we clearly see it seems to be like there's really, no pattern. So whether someone is 20 years or they're 50, like their income is really all over the place, right? There's no clear pattern between, given this data we're looking at, between age and income. There seems to be there's a sense in which like for lower ages, like almost no one seems to be below 25, almost no one seems to be earning above 60K. But above 25, in each age bracket, we kind of have some people that are earning like really high. So those outliers seem not to be present in this below 25 age bracket. But that's as much as we can say from this data. Correlation-wise, there is very, very loose, if at all, otherwise no correlation between the two variables. Does that make sense? Did anyone find anything different? Anybody?
Maybe observation could be the most people earning between the range of 60 to 100, 60 to 110 fall in the range of 25 to 40.
Okay.
So we have very few people earning above 60 on the age range of 40 and 50. But we have more dominance between 25 and 35. Considering the number of dots that are visible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in a sense, this is just like what the point of like plotting, you're doing your scatter plot is. It helps you at a glance, like using visuals, kind of visualize what's going on, like in terms of relationship between the variables. So that's kind of what I wanted us to do briefly. And we can do same like with other variables. Instead of income, we can look at like miles run, let's say. And here, like there's some loose correlation, right? Between, is there? Do you see any pattern? It seems to be like some loose correlation between age and number of miles run, which kind of makes sense. But below 30, it's like all kind of the same. Like your fitness shouldn't change much, but it seems like as people go older, there are fewer people that do really above 100 miles. So just visualizing it this way, kind of helps give you some perspective. I quickly wanted to, someone said the bin stuff didn't appear for them. Did you double click the axis, so the horizontal axis where you have the bins? If you double click that, the bins should pop up. Do you want to try that? Is there anyone else that has a challenge doing that?
I think the challenge, it's gonna work for the um, for those that are able to get a statistical chart. That is gonna work. I think the main issue is still that old format of Excel, whereby I need to go through the route of going via data extension and all of that, and I couldn't find my statistical charts on in Spark. I had to go to data, and then from data, I'll click on the data, whatever, to the right hand side. And so this time around, you have to input the bin yourself. And then if you don't input it and you leave it on for Excel to come up with the bin, it won't come up with those two ranges. It'll come up with one. And then to now change it, it's not even going to give you that option. So it was really stressful. But that's why I said after the class, I'm going to go through it and see if after, because I've already saved as Excel, the, what do you call it? What you say we should do, I've done it.
You've done
But
that.
I'm not still saying statistical chart. Maybe I will now do the option, the adding again and see if it's going to come up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Maybe try that. Someone else said like it worked. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so everyone should just try to have it work. If it doesn't work, we'll figure it out together if it doesn't work, right? But first just try, and then like after the class as well, like try so that we see like everyone is carried along. Like we're kind of wrapping up the Excel bit, but I'm tempted to show us there was another exercise that I posted on the group. Let me see if I have that open. Yeah, this one. Has everyone been able to download this from the group? If you haven't, just try and quickly download this. We'll talk about it a bit. The truth with like all the steps, like do this in Excel, like it's really not a problem, right? Like you can just really make sure you're understanding the concept, like you're understanding what we're trying to do. Why are we doing a distribution? In the end, like if you miss the step on what to click to have a distribution, if you just Google creating a distribution in Excel, like you'd see like steps, you'll see there's stuff on Stack Overflow, there's YouTube videos, there's like lots of different, there's ChatGPT, you can put it to tell you the steps, click this, click that, right? But it's not just the clicks. Like that's why I tried to focus more on like this is why you should do a distribution, and that's why we took some time doing the statistics part. You really need to know why, like what to do and why you're doing it. The how, a lot of times, like especially these days, there are many tools to support, and we're also here to guide that, but make sure you know why you're doing that. So remember when we discussed in like 2 classes ago, when you get a measure of center, like you have the mean age, like you don't just want to go into a meeting and say, this is the mean age of, customers from last week's sales. You want to say, and this is the distribution. Like you always want to go show your measure of center with some sense of what the variability around in that sample for which you calculated a measure of center. So that was what. Can everyone try and quickly just download this data set? So I'll just explain the data set, discuss some of the questions, maybe give pointers on what to do. So everyone can try it. And let's say before we start one of our classes, we just go through it together. Because it's really a lot of work like still happens in Excel, right? So it's good to just like play around with your Excel, know the kind of analysis you're trying to do, and have some of these tools at your fingertips. So does everyone have this downloaded? Just give me a thumbs up in the chat so I know if I should proceed or wait. Anybody? Has anyone grabbed this from Slack? Okay, good. So we have
Like, please, what's the title of the files because I'm looking for it. I could only see
It's
the
the,
word
it's the
call
most recent one.
Yeah, I
The
just put
most
it like this evening.
it's
Okay.
last before my submission is practice
Okay, then I think I
exercise
submit it.
Excel.
Oh, all right. Thank you. I'll check it.
Exactly. So you can just download it and okay, so while some people are downloading it, let's just look at the data set. So the scenario is we have a company that just received like data from an internal report, and we want to make assessments about the data. So many times, like as a business analyst, as a data analyst, you have like a report or some data that comes in from somewhere. You know how when you're, for example, in business analysis, doing a current state analysis, right? They send someone to go to look at the process and come up with data on how the process is running currently, right? And you receive that kind of data. What do you do with it? Like, how should you think about the data, right? So we provided like a sample data set that has, so this is for the insurance business, right? So you have in insurance, you usually have your policy number. So each policy number is a particular insurance, like let's say package bought by a customer, right? Someone saying something in chat. Okay, just trying to make sure I have my eyes on both. So you have your policy number, you have the expiration date of the policy, you have the location. So the location, whether it's urban and rural, as many of us know, your insurance premiums are usually pegged to where you live, right? And whether it's a busy place, whether it's rural or urban, affects your premiums. You have the states, the states in the US, the region is Midwest, and so on, Northeast, Central. You have the insured value. Insured value is the amount you're insuring for. Kind of insurance for like the business type, whether it's an earthquake prone area or not, whether it's a flood prone area or not, whether the insurance policy covers for earthquakes or not, or floods or not, and the sign up date, right? And if you see so the data shows all these like fields. And here you just have like the unique state. So this has kind of been done for us. But if you were to extract this number, you know you can easily do that with a pivot table, right? If you put this whole table into a pivot table, if you put states, you're going to get a list of all the unique states, right? Same with region, same with business type. Does that make sense? I hope we all remember that.
That's during the process of data cleansing.
Exactly. So this data is already cleaned, right? Because of time for you guys. I have a version of that. Like when I'm doing like a longer Excel class, there's a version of that where there's like a lot of data cleaning work to do here. But always remember, like we talked about this in the class as well, to start by inspecting the data, trying to understand it and cleaning the data. So for example, this in the original data, there's no sign-up date. There's just the end date of the expiration. And you know, with most insurance policies, they're renewed annually. So this sign-up was reverse calculated using a function called eDate. eDate just helps you add a number of months to a given date. So we just added negative 12 months, which is like going back to when the policy starts. If it expires here, then it starts 1 year before. And so you have this sign up column. Yeah, so, but if you're to get like your unique entries, I was just trying to show that if you insert pivot table, as we've been doing 1 million times, you can always drag state. So this is a list of unique states, right? If instead of state, you want to have the regions. So that's like a quick way to get your unique regions. You know, sometimes you're trying to do, say, VLOOKUP, right? Where you want to have all the distinct entries that are in a particular column. So pivot table is always a shortcut to do that. There's another way, but pivot table is like a really a quick way to do it. Okay, so this is the data we have, and we have a couple of business questions that the team is trying to like know, right, about the data. So one of the things is what is the average, minimum, maximum valuation of the policy per business region, right? What did you notice while making this calculation? So does anyone have any thoughts on how we will do this?
We can use the formulas to call out, to search by region.
Great.
We have the formula to find the average, max, and mean.
Exactly. Nice. So that's a great approach. So yeah, let's do it. So now we have our formula for average to be average, right? But now there's a small caveat here that's saying you should find the minimum, maximum, and average for certain given regions. So the regions are East, Midwest, Northeast, and Central. So now one way, like some people will do it, is to sort all the data into those regions and then find the average from this cell onto that cell. But that can be quite cumbersome, right? So you have a formula called average if. So when you just put in average, you see the different options, right? So you have average if, you have average ifs, if you have multiple conditions. In this case, we have the one. So average if, and it's really very intuitive because average if, then it tells you, first thing you need to put is the range, criterion, and then it returns the average, like where it should return the average if this condition is met, right? So in this case, our range would be what? This is the range where we're looking for East region. So let's go to the data.
So you're going to check it on the region.
Exactly. So once again, you can hold Shift and Control and go down. And if we want to be able to use this again, like let's freeze it. So how do you freeze a cell? We all know, right?
Function 4.
Exactly. I have a slight issue with my keyboard because like I have a Mac and I'm running parallels, so I have to do this manually. Just a keyboard compatibility issue. Okay, so freezing, but it does the same thing. Option 4, it just puts $ to freeze your column and to freeze your row, right? And now for the condition, we're saying if it's equal to East, right? So one thing to remember is to put your condition in brackets.
Yes, no brackets.
So we're saying sorry. Okay, so equal sign. Then you use the and. Are we saying the syntax? So you're putting the condition, and then what you want to return is East. So we're saying average if the data, so where you had all the East, Midwest, Northeast combined in that table. So if it's equal to East, right, then you want to return the average, right? And so we go back to Sorry, it's a bit messy because of my on-screen keyboard. Is the average insured value, right, that we're trying to return. So is everyone able to do that?
Sorry, Shekinah, the criteria, I thought you wanted to type East. I didn't get that part.
Okay. So we're saying average if, so let me remove this guy. So we're averaging if here in the data you have all the regions. So you're saying average if the region is equal to East. So if it's in the East region, then average its insured value, because you want to get the average insured value in the East region. So what the formula is just doing is average if that range in the table is equal to East. So our East, instead of putting it manually, we're just selecting it from here. So if it's equal to East, then return the average for the valuation. Do you get it? So the range you're searching in, what you're searching for, the criterion, like what search has to be met, could be equal to, greater than, it could be lots of different things, any conditional statement here, and then average range. So average of what are you returning, and what we're returning is the average valuation. So the first range from our data here, first range is region, and the next range is this. And in between, we have the condition to be if it's equal to East. Does that make sense? Does everyone have it? Someone said they're confused. So remember, if you're doing average, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I think there is an easier way to do it, but it seems a little bit complicated. It's just kind of messing with my head. So if the syntax says average if, can you go back to the syntax, please? Syntax says equal to average if, then what range are you looking at? You click on that range, which is the region, right? And
yes.
the criteria you're looking at is East, right?
Yeah.
Then that says what is the range you're looking at, and the range is what's that column again? Insured value or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I would have just clicked on the range, specify the criteria by clicking on East, then the comma, then click on the range for the insured value and close the bracket.
Say that again.
I said I would have clicked on the range equals to average if the range, click on the criteria in that range, which is the East, then comma, and the range for the value. I don't know if that makes sense.
But that's what we did, though.
It looks a little bit complicated this way. I'm sorry.
No, but what you just said we should do is what we kind of did, right? Because so the formula is just average if. So if first you're like average if the range, so this is the range so East, all these values have East, Midwest, blah, blah, blah. So that's the whole range. So you have different values, right? Different regions. And of all those regions, you want to only select the ones that are equal to East. And then what are you averaging? You're averaging the valuation. That's quite straightforward. Yeah.
Sorry, Shekinah, I'm sorry. So why did you put this equal to sign? Why didn't you just do after the comma? Why didn't you select the East? Why is there? I'm saying equal to. I'm seeing this ampersand symbol.
That was my point. So why the equal to and the closing of the bracket? I'm
confused.
Because so in Windows, like I'm curious to see what you guys get, but when you're working in Mac, and sometimes this is going to be it's not going to give you the answer for those working in Mac in Excel. Is there anyone working in Mac here that wants to?
Yes, I was just about to say it does not give an answer. It does give an error.
Exactly. So I'm giving you like a formula that works for both. Say again.
I was asking, is it an OS thing? Is it a specific thing to Mac and Windows? Does it define
What
how
are
you
you
use
using?
the
Are you using
syntax?
Windows?
Yes, I'm using Windows.
Yeah, so you
Can you
wouldn't.
please? So go ahead, please.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you're using Windows, then you're fine. Like, you can just do this. But all this doesn't matter. It's just syntax, right? As far as the other
Can
way
you
still
copy
works
the
for you,
syntax
right?
and put on the chat group, please, on the chat box, please?
Someone is tired of typing.
No, not that. I'm seeing that like there's an omission, and I'm trying to trace where that is. So I want to see if I have the actual syntax that you have, if it works or not.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
And I tried to type east instead of copying that question part to my own, and it didn't work. So you cannot type. Does it have to be like you have to select?
Did you put it in brackets? In inverted in quotes?
So I did the equal sign and the ampersand, then I typed east. I should put those in quotes too.
Yes. It cannot be out.
Okay, it actually worked. It worked.
Yeah. So that's it. Like, I'm just giving you what will work for both. Like, I try to bear that in mind. But hey, like, you shouldn't be confused by just this equals to and, but you can take it out. It's the same thing. The syntax works both ways. The main thing is just to know, like, not for us to dwell so much here, but the main thing really is to know that you can use a condition to filter what you want to average from a range, instead of, like, many people, like I see, they try to sort first, which you can, right? You can highlight all of this data and just sort the data, right? You filter the data out, and then you can always, like, highlight what region you want, right? Or you can sort Z to A, whatever. So you can average just from here all the way to where Northeast stops. Like, if you know the cell reference, it's easy to do. But you see, it's kind of messy. Imagine if you have 500,000 rows. You want to know how to be able to put in the formula, highlight the whole data, and just put in the criterion and be able to average with that. Same way you have max if, you have min if. It's the same syntax. So I won't bother like going through it step by step, but I hope that's helpful, like to help us sift through like larger data if we're trying to find average, max, and min.
Can you run through the max if?
It's the exact same thing, but just replace it with max.
So I tried from my end, but the value is not in comma. So it's just 5418. It didn't give me, mine didn't give me comma.
No, just
Copy
the
the
comma
syntax.
at the top. And a number, just click the comma.
In the what?
Just click the comma here. Like, if you see on the top you have number, click that comma.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an observation though.
Please go ahead.
There's no max if function. There's max ifs when there's more than one criteria.
That's what I was trying to, yeah.
But there's no single max if. So, and the max ifs is double criteria or triple criteria. So what do we do in that case?
Sorry, one sec. So in this case, we're saying max if let's just follow the steps. One sec. So it's saying max range. Okay, criterion range before the criterion. Okay. The good thing with this is like you can just always follow. Like Excel gives you lots of prompts. If we take that out. So max if first, we're saying the max range. Sorry, our max range should be this guy. So if this is the max range, then this is E, okay. Then the criterion, let's see. Okay, let's try this. Right, okay. So the max gives us, is that 49 million? Yeah, 49. So once again, like you just have to follow the syntax and like know what it's saying, right? So in this one, right, we had range criterion and with max ifs is a bit different. So you have your max range being the range of the max you're pulling out. Because for some reason, like, I don't know why Excel did that, but it's like you're putting the range. So our F here is where you're pulling the answer from. So like what you want to select as max. So this case is in the back end is doing like a match and index kind of referencing to pick out just the location where the max is. I don't know why exactly they reverse that format, but for max if, just know that you're putting the column you're supposed to pick your maximum index from, and then you now deal with the range for the criterion and then specify the criterion. So it's as simple as that. And if you had multiple criterions, you just use like and keep going, right? So yeah.
So my question is, did you eventually use multiple criteria in this case?
No, here's just the one. But you can always try that out. Like there's no point getting really stuck in how in max formula,
right?
Exactly whether to, like
right.
See how like I just like looked at it and tried to figure out like the order from the prompts.
Yeah.
That's what you always expect to do. In the end, like this is not that important stuff, but knowing how to use this, knowing that those functions exist, and then being able to use them. Like if this was an assignment, for example, in 2 or 3 minutes, you would still figure it out anyway, just like I did. So yeah, same. But that's why also it's good to practice. Like, thanks to a person like that said we should do this. I mean, I'm sure everyone here would have figured it out, but like showing you this also helps. But you should try out for the rest. Try out the min. Think about another condition that you can test and be sure you did the right thing and check it out as well. All right.
And another question: if you want to have a nested if condition of the max ifs. And then we say that if the range of region is equals to east, give us this. Else, can we do like the else 0 or something like that?
Yes, you can do that. But remember, when you are to have a conditional output, you have to have a true or false value there. So whatever you put, just think about it in terms of like what it will be, right?
So that's why I thought of 0. That if we say else 0, so if it adds up as 0, 0 is not going to add any additional value to what we have, and it will still end up giving us the final actual value that is supposed to be there. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, because remember how your range is working.
Yeah,
it's looking at this whole range and it's picking the one, is returning an index to the back end, right? And then it's picking value at that index.
Right.
So it depends. But usually, like in your formula, where you have like where it's criterion, all it's looking for is true or false.
Right. Thank you.
You can test that actually. So is this what you're saying? Like if you had 0?
Yes, else 0.
Yeah.
So, 0 is going
what it's returning is that there's no index that meets the criterion, whatever the criterion is. So it's going to return like null.
Null because
ideally what this returns to Excel in the back end is it returns a location, like an index. So it's going to be a number, and that index is like is going to return the value at that index for the range. Yeah.
Since we already said what we're looking at for that means it's picking the 0 as what is going to return back to us.
Exactly.
Yeah, got you.
Yep. So try min. For this one, it's almost 1 hour. For this one is what business type, what industry or business type signed up with our company first? Does anyone have any thoughts on how we should go about this? And what is the average, maximum, and minimum valuation of each industry? So where here we did region, here we're going to just
filter by the date.
So you can filter, or once again, you can just find the minimum date. Like you don't want to be manually filtering, right? If you're looking at different industries, so here, look at the...
Like we can have a pivot table where we put in...
You can always use pivot tables. So ideally, what I would expect actually from us for this like practice is try and solve it using formulas and try and solve it using a pivot table. But as we know, with the pivot table, we can do all of this stuff like very straightforward. Just insert pivot table, because we've done this over and over, right? So what are we dragging? Are other people in the class?
Maybe sign up.
We are here. You know, some of us are new to this Excel something, so we are just trying to catch up small.
And pull me back now. I'm here for you.
I thought I was
even somebody asked a question in the chat for you to come back and.
One question. You know, it's hard. Like if I'm writing Excel here and following the chat. So if I take a while to answer you, like you can just unmute and say something. I think someone said, "Could you repeat the marks?"
Okay. We are trying to catch up small.
Okay, just like feel free to call me back. Yeah, like I'm here for you guys. So I don't want to leave like the class behind. So the max thing is same way. That means the person, not the person who asked. If you understood average, for max, like all we're doing with max is just remember how this average was range, criterion, and like what you're averaging. In the case of max, you're picking a particular location. So it's just how the formula is. Like, we don't know why Excel did that, but that's how the formula is. You pick the range, max range. So the range where you want to pick the max from. So in this case, the max is coming from insured value. We want the maximum insured value. So we put that range. So max for insured value, which is F2 to F501. Then to match this east, we pick the range that has all the different regions, which is E2, is right beside the F, so column E. And then we put the condition, it has to be equal to questions. If you're in Windows, you don't need this equals to and. It's just something there's a workaround for how, I don't know, Excel works in Mac. So, but for Windows, it still works, so you might as well, right? But essentially what you're saying is, look at all the insured values, which is F2 to F501. Look at all the regions, which is E2 to E501, and then pick me the region that matches to cell C5, which is East. So give me only East, the maximum value for East. So all the rows that have East as their region, check among them and give me the maximum one, which is what the formula does. And same thing for min. And now we're just saying like, for this question, for the next question, you can also use pivot tables. That's why I always say pivot tables are like super handy. So when you highlight all the data, just insert pivot table as we've done a million times at this point. And then, so for the first question where we're looking at what region, right? If we put region here, so we have our rows, right? The different regions. And what's the thing we're looking for? Insured value, right? So insured value, we can drag to values. Now look at the summation box. It's showing sum of insured values. We don't want to see the sum. We go to value field settings because we're trying to find the average. And we just put average. And okay, and it gives you the average of all the regions. See that one is, that was 541, blah, blah, blah. This is it. I know some people will be like, very much simpler. But there are times where you need to use Excel functions too, right? So it's good to know both, but this is as straightforward as it gets. So there you go. This is the average for each of the different regions. Same way we can add max. All you have to do is to take your insured value again, put it as another column. Same step, go to value field settings. In this case, you're doing max, right? You can fix the number formats here as well if you want. So number.
Question and observation.
Go for it.
I observe that we usually don't see the median and the mode in the values selection. Is there a reason why?
I do not know the reason why, beyond observing it like you are observing. But
so in the case where we want to find the median with the pivot table, what do we do? Or the mode?
Find it like without using the pivot table.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But hold on. I think that's it. Let me see for median if
I think that's that's like the practical thing to be done, because we actually tried our hands on it yesterday. And
okay. Who's we?
That we didn't like these assignments. We brainstormed on the assignments. We were grouped for this whole team. So anytime we get stuck, sometimes we work as a team to try and decode and brainstorm. So this was just a brainstorming session to see if any other person was experiencing the same issue with finding pivot table median with a pivot table, and also the histogram issue. Hence the reason why I'm saying we.
Sure. That's good. If you guys are working on that together, it's always helpful. Samantha, how do you get the pivot table? Remember, you just highlight all the data. Shortcut to do that is go to the corner, hold Shift and Control, sideways and down arrows, and then go to Insert Pivot Table, and then you can insert it on a new worksheet or somewhere in an existing worksheet. And then it gives you this. Right, so same thing, if we want to do a pivot table for, what was the other thing they said? Region, or was it business type? Yeah. So this business type, the same thing, average and max. Right, so any other questions before we move on from Excel? But please, like, is everyone committing to either working in your groups, but trying to solve like everything in this very question? And if you want more, I have another sample Excel file. That's interesting.
So I just wanted to see that the question marks formula again. I'm losing something. Just wanted to see.
The one that is in the chat?
Yeah, okay, did you put the max in the chat?
This one, Abby?
Yes, for the max value.
The max is not in the chat, but I can't.
Okay. Quick one. And question 5C5 that I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Did you select the row? Or how did did you click on the row to have that value? Yes, because it keeps giving me error syntax. Yes. Every attempt I have to click on that row to fill in the gap, it just keeps giving me an error.
Just click on it and it comes up. Because I was on another sheet before coming here, so it gave me the tab reference. But otherwise, it won't give you questions. It will just give you C5 if you're already here.
So it keeps telling me there's a problem with this formula.
Just check. I pasted the check. I'm sure there's something tiny there that you're...
Yes. I'm just going to check.
No problem.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. Any other...
Sorry, I forgot. What was the dollar sign for again, please?
To freeze the cells.
Yeah,
right.
To freeze your cells. So, okay, I can show that like quickly in just a second before we go. So like, when you drag your cells, it automatically gives you the next cell. And so here, the reference here is what, N4, right? So N4 is N and 4. So column N, row 4, right? And when you drag that, it gives you the next one, which is N5 and so on. Now, if you're dragging a formula or copy paste a formula, whatever, and you wanted this reference to be fixed, that like if you want to always refer to New York as you go down the row, like when you drag here, you still want to have New York all through. That means you have to freeze the row. And this row is what, row 4, right?
Yep.
So what the reference you want to freeze, you just put a $sign in front of it. So we want to freeze 4. So we do this, right? So if you were to drag, you would have New York all through. So what that dollar is just saying, hold the row fixed, hold row 4 fixed when you're referencing this formula. Likewise, if you drag horizontally, like you keep going to the next and to the next, if you want to freeze New York, like if you want to freeze this column, then you're trying to freeze N, right? And to freeze N, you just have to put a $sign behind N, right? So same thing. So what this means now is you're cruising the row and the column. So whether you drag this way or downwards, all you have is the same.
Thank you.
So before we did that, before we dragged also, if we had only, I've changed it. Okay, so if we have only the row frozen, what that does is down this way, we still have New York because it's the same row, but once we're going across columns, then it changes, right? So those $signs are just to freeze either the row or the column. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So in this our example that we just did now, what if we froze only the row? That means the columns would like not give. So this max if I'm just looking at this our max if sum. If we froze only like the rows.
Honestly, for that max if the way we entered, it doesn't matter. But I just did that because like if we were dragging the formula to now do Midwest, right? So look, we've frozen all the rows. We've frozen everything except this region because we want to be able to. So for Midwest, it just automatically shifts the formula. Can you see? So now you're referencing Midwest, but the ranges, you don't want the ranges to move because it's that same data set, the whole column that you used in the data, and it stops at 501 still. So that's why I just did that, like, so that when you drag, you see, now it gives you for Northeast because you did not freeze this portion. But if we froze the reference, if we freeze this on the row, let's say we freeze 7, right? When you drag it, it's going to give you what? Same number. So do you get it now?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Sure thing. Okay. So yeah, you guys do what you're doing. Like, I'm glad to hear that people are working on like homework and things in groups, because what it does is it helps like those that know or caught something in class and someone caught another part and you can work together, right? So try and answer all these questions. There's a VLOOKUP portion here. So you can Google the syntax, it's the same idea, like just, you can follow the formula. I want us to touch on just prep for our SQL class for tomorrow. But if you have any questions, right, feel free to just like reach out at the next class or just before the class, and we can trash it out together. So all good? Hope the Excel is helpful. Like you always use Excel for one thing or the other, so it's good we're touching on these things. Any other question before we move along? Okay, so you can reference the notes for the like what I'm about to share for the next class. But please, like what I would like stress in this SQL portion is like everyone needs to follow along. Like get out your computer, make sure you're typing. Like don't be left behind. Don't say, oh, I'll catch up later. Once you do that, like that's it. You won't catch up for the rest of the SQL. And when we start Power BI, same thing, right? So for this SQL portion as well, I just try to make sure you're following the whole time. Okay. So today I'll try to finish on time. I know we've been spilling over a lot or before time, but yeah, let's switch to the SQL part. I'll share my screen now. So is that it? Is everyone out of Excel mode now? Right. Or you know what? Let's take a 3 minutes break. Just a short break.
I never really get that.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so we just have like a few things to touch on tonight before we call it wraps. I'm just going to introduce like 3 or 4 slides on 3 or 4 slides on relational databases and just share the material we're supposed to reference to set up our MySQL. So now we're getting deeper into the tools part. We've been doing Excel and spreadsheets as well. So with the Excel and spreadsheets, if you notice, we've been trying to like reference and leverage some of the statistical concepts we touched on, right? Implementing them in Excel. And now we'll do some SQL, right? Now, so what we're going to touch on is just, what relational databases are. We'll talk about the SQL language a bit, data definition language, data manipulation language. And so, yeah, so let's go. So a database, a relational database is just a container, right, that holds data in tables. Now, I've been working a lot with spreadsheets. We've talked a bit about the structure of like tables. The only thing that's a difference here is relational databases, like a combination of multiple different tables that are connected in a logical fashion, right? So those tables hold data in different forms, right? And those tables are grouped together and linked together, right, in schemas. So a schema is just the structure of tables, right? Connecting multiple tables, the information in multiple tables, right? So that you can parse out your information by combining usually different fact and dimension tables. And we'll talk about that some more in a bit. So a collection of information tables are organized in a certain structure, right? With relationships that connect them. Let me just see how many slides we're going to cover today. Yeah, with relationships that connect them, right? And this is a really old, like relational databases have been around for a long time, bottom line, right? Developed by EF Code and IBM, but different variations of the SQL language have been used in different places. So relational databases essentially are like a fundamental way most businesses organize the majority of their data today, right? And so think about it as multiple spreadsheets that have different kinds of information stored in a certain standardized way and connected, all to make up a schema that shows the different connections. And I'll show some more things as we go along. So what's structured query language? Structured query language essentially enables us to access, right, to communicate with databases, access the data in the database, right, and to get particular data that we're looking for. So it's really standard for manipulating data that's in relational databases, and it's really old, like I said. So this is not new technology; it's been around with us for a long time. And important to note is that there are different sort of dialects of varieties of SQL, right? But essentially, like again, and you guys should have known this by now, I like to focus on thinking about understanding the structure. In the end, there'll be minor variations, right, between the different dialects of SQL, right? Whether it's PostgreSQL or MySQL, SQL Server, or T-SQL, right? In the end, it's just minor differences in certain keywords and certain arrangements, but ultimately it's the same way. Once you're proficient in SQL in one SQL, they're like usually like it's very, very transferable, or more or less the same thing. So it's old, but really, really still very relevant. Remember the chart I showed us a couple last week, and you saw how SQL was like really up there in terms of skills required for data analysts today, right? I'm so sorry, just give me 1 second. There's some noise. I need to check quickly. One thing. Okay, so we said the different dialects of SQL, but not to worry. You just need to understand how the language works and how to use it essentially. And the rest is just minor differences. Okay, so in the structured query language, we're going to look at 3 areas. As a data analyst, like what's really important for you is to understand data manipulation language, and that comprises your select statement, insert, update. In the end, we'll create the database we'll work with, a small database that we're going to keep querying and using throughout the class. And we'll also create some databases and input some tables in those databases for your assignments. But ultimately, you wouldn't be working so much with these, right? Because you would have like, the company, the firm, whoever will have a database set up. And most times as a data analyst or an analytics professional, you'll be querying data that already exists unless you're a data engineer, right? This is just some particular things that have to do with versioning. So for example, the rollback just helps you save different versions of your table as you update it. Nothing too important here. Where we would focus will be on our select. And would also create a couple of tables, create a database in MySQL, and I'll talk about that in a bit. I'm going a bit fast, but we'll still have time to go through, explain what relational databases are. I just want us to really be on time today. So building a database. So one important thing to remember and note is data types. Now, remember, we talked about, broadly speaking, data types: categorical, numerical, ordinal, and blah. Like we talked about those earlier on. But now, when we talk about data types here, we're talking a bit more specifically, right? Because now you're dealing with relational databases and the kind of data each column can contain. So data types kind of specify what type of data is contained in a column in your data. So think about like tables, right? So each column must have a particular kind of data that it takes. Like you cannot have random columns as numbers, text, is integer, decimal, is date, whatever in one particular column. It's standardized to have a particular data type, right? It's constrained by the data type. So for your char is just text, but of a particular size, right? And standard is maximum of 255 characters. And with char, you usually have fixed length strings. So you could see char 5 or char 2. So if, for example, you're dealing with, let's say the code for, let's say you're dealing with the code for like state code in, let's say, in Canada, you have Ontario to be ON, and you want to have a field that has the particular state code. You're going to have a column that has char 2. So you cannot have ONS because all the provinces have a 2-letter code, right? So char really constrains the size, right, of the column. With varchar, or variable characters, like you have a variable string length, strings permitted within the column. So once again, the max is 255, but you have variable length strings allowed, right? Binary is 1 and 0. and you can have multiple of those. With your float is a floating point number with a precision. We'd see those as well when we're creating our tables. Integers, we know what integers are: 1, 2, 3, 4. Decimal, the decimal type specifies the fixed point number, so number of characters before the decimal point, and the number of digits after the decimal. So if you have 4 for your M and 2 for your D, means you can have fixed numbers 4 points before, and you have 2 decimal points, so 0.02 or 0.14, but you're not more than that. Boolean, where 0 is false and 1 is true, so it's like true and false. Dates, time, timestamp, where you have both date and time. So all we're showing here is just showing different character types and highlighting the fact that in your relational database, for every table and every column within each table, you're going to have specific data types that are strict. So talking about strict and constraints, constraints are just rules that apply to a particular table in the data, right? So there are different rules, and many times you have to think about this also, knowing the kind of data, business data, that is to be stored in that column. So this is where many times the data engineers or the database creators need to know what kind of data a table that's created is going to be expecting, right? So there are different things like limiting the type of data that can be stored, constraints ensure accuracy, reliability of the data in the table. So these constraints help to impose certain limits on the kind of data, nature of data, quantity of things that can be contained in a particular column. And it helps to impose strict data consistency in a table, right? Such that entries that do not meet those criteria cannot be entered into the table and will be aborted, right? So we have things like not null. So not null is a constraint that does not permit a null value in a column. So think about business data like employee ID, right? So you could have a table, an employee table that has employee ID such that it cannot be null, right? And as a rule, the primary key, which is something we'll talk about as well, but the primary key in a table cannot be null. So not null just means in that column, you cannot have a null value. Unique means every data point in that column must be every data point in that column must be unique, so no repetition. Primary key, foreign key, default. So there are many things which would take a look at, but I have a link here for more information on constraints that you could refer to. But all this is just explaining how relational databases work and how the data in them is. So before we go on, I need everyone to open the other document. Let me just pull up. So the document that helps you set up your database. I think we should actually do this. Many times people go back home and they don't look at the setup material. So everyone should just go to Slack and check the second document the first one, MySQL setup. Does everyone have that? So this is what it should be. Does everyone have that document? Let me share again and show you just in case. So this is it. It just has instructions to set up MySQL and the workbench. So what we're going to do is this, because like I've had cases where like people won't have time to go back. I'll just give, I think one of the videos is like 12 minutes just watch the video. For iOS users, watch the video, the first or second or third video. And for Windows users, watch this and try and install, at least download MySQL and MySQL Workbench like right now, so that everyone can try to have it, because we need to have it by tomorrow's class. So I'll just give, let's see, I'll give 10 minutes, put it on like speed play and try and get the software downloaded and installed. And I'll come back in 10 minutes and just talk about relational databases a bit, and then we'll call it a wrap for today. And when we come back tomorrow, we'll jump into actually creating our tables and creating the database. So does everyone have this? Please, are we tired? Okay, I see some yeses. Okay, yes. Everyone has this. So watch the video and try and install yours now. So I'll be back at 9:47 to check that everyone has, and then I'll talk a bit on relational databases before we wrap up. So this is what we're going to discuss just before we call it the night. So I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's please pay attention quickly to this. I just want to talk briefly about relational databases. I know we've mentioned it. I've kind of explained what they are. All right. Yeah, can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay, so we're saying relational databases. We talked about the schema, and what it has is a couple of tables that are connected in a logical way, such that you can retrieve data from the database by combining data that exists in different tables, right? So there are two important things I want to explain when talking about relational databases: the foreign key and the primary key. And I'll talk a bit about this some more on Tuesday, tomorrow. So now in this diagram, in this schema that we have, so for each table, you have the bold gray highlighted header is the table name. So this is invoice header, this is invoice line, business details, customer table, customer address table, business branch, and item. So these are, 6-7 different tables within our database, our relational database. Now, a primary key is just a column in a table that uniquely identifies each record or each row in that table, right? So with your primary key, you're able to identify like each unique row in a table. So if, for example, we have a table of employees and we have employee ID, right? So our employee ID column is the primary key, because each employee we're able to uniquely identify each employee using that column. So once again, a primary key is just a unique column that uniquely identifies each row or record in a table. Does that make sense? Any question? Okay, no question. So now each primary key is usually related or connected to another table through what we call a foreign key. So a foreign key in a particular table is just a column that links to another table's primary key. So in this, what's the difference between primary key and unique key? A unique key and a primary key are speaking to the same thing, right? A unique identifier for a row or a record, right, is the same thing as the primary key. However, you could form a primary key or a unique identifier using more than one column. And I'll talk about that in a bit, which would be composite keys. So if, for example, you have a table where you have a one-to-many relationship. So for example, you have a table of authors and their books, right? So let's say each row is a book written by a particular author, right? So you could have a column for author name and another column for book. In which case you're making your primary key using more than one column, right? So in that sense, your primary key can be a combination of more than one field. Whereas with unique keys, you're kind of the concept of unique keys also kind of ensures that you're having no duplicates within one particular column. So it's kind of different, and it takes you to a concept which I don't talk about, but different forms of tables. So if you check database tables, standard normal forms, right, of your tables. So if a table is organized in a way such that you have a unique key, so like, and that's usually for database generated keys. So if the database administrator is entering, for example, a unique key for each client, that key is going to be constructed in such a way that it's also unique. But in terms of just getting the primary key, which is just something that identifies a unique row in a database, sometimes you could combine more than one column to achieve that. So the case I was explaining earlier was if you have a table that has books written by people, and you had a column that had author name and another column that had book title, right? Each unique row, because one author could write multiple books. So to get the primary key for a particular record, you're going to have to combine author name and title of book, because two authors can also choose to name, let's say, their book the same, right? You could have a case where one author writes multiple books, or for some reason, they're two similar, same books, book titles used by different authors. So if you combine author name and book title, you would have a unique record. A primary, the two combined give you a primary key that uniquely identifies that row. But with unique keys, you meet that condition, but also the fact that that column has no duplicate entries. So whereas in this case, you could have one author writing multiple books. So it's like author name A, book, first book, same author name A, another book, book two that they wrote, and so on. So that's just like kind of the subtle difference. But ultimately, you're looking to be able to identify each unique record or each row uniquely. So thanks, that's a good question. So remember, in terms of primary key versus foreign key, the primary key is just unique identifier of the row in a table. The foreign key is another column in the table that is the primary key of another table, and it helps you connect to that table. So let's look at the schema like before us as a typical example, right? So look at, for example, customer. This is a customer table and customer address. Right. So customer table has a customer ID, which is a unique or primary key. And then it has the name of the customer and the customer address ID. So this table doesn't have the customer's actual address. It just has an identifier for the customer address ID. Now, this customer address ID is the foreign key because it links to the primary key of another table. Now, there's a separate dimension table that exists on its own called customer address. This table has, the purpose of this table is to hold addresses of customers. And the unique field for that is the customer address ID. So this is now a primary key. But when it maps onto this other relational table is a foreign key. So this customer address ID is a foreign key here, and it maps the primary key customer address in the table where this is the primary key. Look at another table. This is business details. So think about a company that has multiple, a database that has multiple businesses. Let's say they're customers, they serve businesses, right? So this business details table has business details ID. It has business branch ID. It has the business's name. It has the VAT number of the business, right? So it has a bunch of metrics. but you cannot put all the information in the one table. So it maps onto another table that strictly has information on where the branch is. So if you're looking for information on the branches within the business, this is the table. Now, this table connects to business details table. So here you have the business name, branch, business branch ID, business details ID, and VAT number. So the primary key of this table is the business details ID. The foreign key is the business branch ID that maps onto another table, the business branch table, where business branch ID is the primary key. So you see this primary key to foreign key relationship, primary key to foreign key, right? Primary key to foreign key, and so on. So by this system of relationships, essentially, you're connecting the different fact and dimension tables within the database. And we're going to see all of this, like once we create our own database and we start querying data. So if, for example, you're looking for information on a particular customer named John, you want to know the address of a customer named John, right? This table has the name of the customer. This table doesn't have name of customers, it has John. Yeah, it has just the addresses. It doesn't have John in here. So you are going to be combining your table that has your customer information, such as name. And to get the address, you're going to be saying for the customer whose name is John and the address ID is this, you're going to be connecting this table with this table so that you can get the address of John using John's customer address ID. And we're going to see how all of that is done. But just think of a big business with a relational database that's connecting lots of different kinds of information within the company or within the database using this relationship, this schema. So this schema gives you how all the relational tables are connected and mapped. And you could have multiple foreign keys within the table, right? You can see that. So one table could be mapped to the primary keys of many other tables. So this is kind of how to think about your relational database. Different tables, each record has to be uniquely identified for that table using a primary key, which is often one column, but can be more than one column, as in the example I explained. And that primary key is the unique identifier of the row of data. Each record is uniquely identified by the primary key. Now, that whole table connects to another table using a foreign key. And the foreign key is just a column within your table that is the primary key of another table and connects it, right? So you have this relationship of primary keys and foreign keys mapping out your schema of your relational database. And it's with this schema and this knowledge that we're able to join multiple tables to get what information we're looking for within our relational database. And we're at time, but we're going to do all of this in practice. It's not just going to be theory. We're going to build our database and start like writing queries and step by step build on those queries until you're writing large complex queries and you're able to pull data out of a database. So I'm going to call it a wrap for tonight, but please make sure you go through the video, try to install it yourself. There are 2 videos in each case. Okay, I'll share another Excel file in Slack tonight so you can practice some more. Very useful to keep practicing and to do it in groups. And then make sure you have your MySQL Workbench and SQL Server installed and running by tomorrow's class. But if you run into any issues, don't worry, but make sure you attempt it. And if you run into any issues, drop a message on Slack and also come like 5 minutes early before class tomorrow so we can get you sorted. I would have Mahita in class to support on Tuesday, and so that we can be walking through issues that people are having in the chat while teaching is going on at the same time. So thanks everyone. If there's any very pressing question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can end the class for today so everyone goes back to make sure they have their SQL Server up and running. Thank you.